So I guess we'll get going. My name's Kip Zeider. I'm the Visitor Services Coordinator for the Motor Racing Research Center. And I want to thank everybody for coming out on what is that sun that we've seen today? I haven't seen it in a while. If you got up in the morning and saw the sun and you were scared and you went back to bed, it's really okay. The sun is fine. But I want to thank you for coming out on what's obviously a beautiful day. We are very excited about this presentation. We are very excited about having these two fellows here. I'm going to start this off by thanking everybody involved in this, because inevitably at the end of it I forget to thank people. So the first people I want to thank obviously are our stars here, Mr. Dean Johnson and Mr. Jim Oddy. Hold your applause. Not at the end, but hold your applause right now. I want to thank Jen, who's flitting around here as our high school person, AV person who's here. I want to thank Jim Galbraith, my good friend, who Jim and I have spent weeks trying to cull 3,000 slides down into the 250 that we'll be seeing this afternoon. I hope you made your hotel reservations, because we're having an afternoon session and then we'll bring it back tomorrow morning for the final of the talk. It's been a very difficult task, only because of the fact that there's just so much good stuff that we've seen there. I want to thank Eric, who is somewhere. Eric is our technical whiz who's taping this and all this good stuff. I want to thank, this is why I do this, Allison Kreitzer from the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing, who hopefully you stopped by her table and picked up some information from her. I want to thank Les, the photographer, whose table was opposite her. Les is selling posters, so after this talk, please go back and buy a poster or two from Les. Les, we appreciate you making the drive down to do that. We'll have one gentleman that will speak for just a couple minutes after our formal presentation is done here. His name is Jim, and he represents Skyline Dragway. We had a couple cars that these guys were gracious enough to bring in this morning, parked outside. Skyline is located in Tioga Center. It's whatever the motorsports complex is, but it's the 8th mile drag strip, and then the old Shangri-La 2 on the bottom. Very, very cool place. And I want to thank Jason, who brought in the Christmas tree. And short of the interesting cars that we bring in from time to time, the Christmas tree is the coolest damn thing we've had in the center in a long time. I wish I could keep it there. I wish I could take it home, actually, but my wife would get upset about that. So I want to thank all these people. Without all of their help, and Jim's especially, this just would not have come to place. So brief background on the collection. Dean actually stopped at our place probably 3 years ago with a couple different scrapbooks, and Bill Green and myself started looking through the scrapbooks, and we're literally just jumping up and down, because this is my era of drag racing. I knew all these guys. And the archivist that we had at the time, for whatever reason, just wasn't particularly interested in the collection. So Dean left, fortunately, to come back to us again about a year and a half ago with multiple boxes, multiple scrapbooks, all kinds of memorabilia about Niagara. We advertise ourselves as International Motor Racing Research Center, and that means we touch on everything. But this is the first program we've ever done on drag racing, and because again, I kind of consider this the golden age of drag racing. We wanted to get some of this collection out into the public view. So that's why we're here today. So Dean, thank you very much for bringing this. Without further ado, I think let's roll.
Did you want me to talk, or did you want to?
No, we gotta.
Yippee! We open this weekend! Sunday! Niagara! It's opening day. Look at the lineup. The incredible Wild Bill Shrewsbury and his wheel standing LA Dart, plus the spectacular supercharged Lazar Funny Pinto side by side against Buffalo's own Jimmy Oddy. You're gonna see it. And next time you roll up to that stoplight, buddy, you stop, think of us, and save it for Sunday! The racers place in New York State out on Lockport Road, just north of Niagara Falls Airport in Niagara Falls, New York. See you at 2.
So that was it. That's the presentation. I have played that so many times that the people I work with just I mean, they have lots of reasons to hate me, but they have hated me because I just love those commercials. Those commercials were iconic, and we'll touch on the commercials in a second. But before I turn the microphone over to Dean, I just have a couple questions before we get into your component and involvement with the track. When did Niagara first open up? Who opened it up? Do you have any idea what the acreage was or any of the monetary, the price, what did it cost to buy the land, all that stuff? And how and when did you become involved in it? And the final question that I have on that is we're going to see several slides here where it's called Niagara Airport Drag Strip, it's called Niagara International, it's called Niagara Dragway. Were you just trying to keep ahead of the feds, or was there some reason why it was called a number of different names?
All right. I don't believe this, is this on? Okay. In 1961, Niagara was started by my father and a fellow by the name of Jerry Hammond. And my father was, I guess he was concerned about me doing some testing on the street. And he became interested. He wanted to know if there was any way it was possible to get us street racers off the street. And I put him on to a fellow by the name of Jerry Hammond, who had a dragster and a speed shop in Niagara Falls. And between the two of them, they figured out that they needed a certain amount of acreage, and they put together a program where my father was actually able to put two pieces of property together, totaling 197 acres. And they decided that they could run a racetrack and maybe make a couple of bucks too. So in 1961, I was with my father, and the bulldozer on a tractor trailer came up, and they unloaded it, and the fellow said, what do you want me to do? And my father, there were no stakes or anything, and we were at one end, we were at the airport end of the what was to become the drag strip, and my father said, you see that tree way down there at the other end of the property? And the fellow said, yes. And he said, well, that's from here to there is where I want the track. There were no stakes, no nothing. So away they went. And the fellow said, how much do we want? And he said, 60 feet wide. I want it cleaned out. And that was the deal. No stakes, no nothing. And they did have a permit to build a drag strip. And heaven knows what that meant, but that's what it said. You have a permit to build a drag strip. So they were able to get it. There was a lot of rain, and they finally got it where it was running late in the year in 1961. And the first year that the first race that they had, the cars tore up the starting line, and they had to repave it between the races and the following race. And my father was pretty smart, and he took, after they had repaved it, we put down Portland cement and broomed it in, and then wet it, and then poured more Portland cement in and broomed and wet it. And in effect, it gave us a concrete drag strip to start. And that lasted, so it worked out pretty well. What was the other question?
I think the other question, we could talk about it at various intervals. There were various names for the strip: Niagara Airport, Niagara Dragway, Niagara International.
Originally, it was named Niagara Airport Drag Strip because we were immediately adjacent to the Niagara Airport Drag Strip, and we thought that would make it easier to find. And over the years, whatever was fashionable, we used that name, and it was Niagara this or Niagara International or whatever it was, but it was always Niagara. And it became Sunday Niagara. Everything seems to have been tagged Sunday Niagara, but it was always Niagara. No matter what was fashionable, it was still Niagara. Yes, this is the NASCAR Summer Nationals to be 67, and if you look at the very center, there's the return road there, and that's all dragsters and we would put them out at the quarter mile, and that's when we push started them. So they would come out at the quarter mile and push start up the track. And there's a lot of people there. There's probably 10, 15,000 people there in the track. And the airplane, the wing, that's my father. He's checking up on us. And but it's really a gorgeous picture. There's one more in there which probably we'll see, where there's two dragsters leaving the starting line, which is probably one of my favorite pictures. And this is another picture from the starting line. And you can see the cars, lots of cars. And there's still the towers to the left of center, and just past that you can see the road, and that road is full of dragsters, which in this area that's pretty good. We're not a track known for a lot of dragsters. Most of the cars we ran were a competition car or a gasser or super stock, that type of thing. But this is quite a good picture because there's a lot of people here. This is the hot car staging lane, and we tended to put our motorcycles on the far side, and then we would tell the whatever class we were trying to run, they would come in and line up. You can't see the signs, but there were numbers 1 through 8 or 10, and we'd say, okay, such and such a class, we need you to get in lane 1 or lane 2, whatever. And then we had another section of staging that we ran the stock cars out of, and so we were able to run the cars pretty good. On our biggest race, we ran about 610 cars, and we would run them about every 30 seconds. We'd run a pair of cars, and you have to, because we just didn't have the time to do anything else. So we ran a lot of cars, and we ran them pretty hard. And if they were running them too slow, they tended to get an earful from me, and I'd be shouting, run them, and they'd say, oh, there's cars on the track. And I'd say that they ought to know by now they better be off to the right or left, because I'm sending another pair down on them. And the dragster guys they'd have to stuff their chutes in the cars and all that, and they'd say, you know, you ran cars down on me. And I said, I told you, you only had a few seconds to get the heck out of the way. We're sending cars down. They believed me after a while.
So Dean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You mentioned that you had a lot of dragsters. Was there a particular reason? How many different other drag strips were you guys competing against in Western New York during your time there? And was there a reason why you guys drew more top fuelers than maybe most?
Well, a lot of the top fuel cars were booked in stage shows, where we'd book in a couple of cars and we'd match race them 2 out of 3. And sometimes we would run open competition. But as a rule, the bigger cars tended to go to where there would be a show. And so like the car here, I don't recognize the top car, but the car on the bottom is from Hamilton, and I'm sorry, it's from London, Ontario, and it was a car. I'm not sure. I can't read it exactly, but it's from London car, and it's old style. Nowadays, the cars don't smoke the tires like this anymore, and to me, I like this kind of racing. I thought, when they lost the smoke and the noise and everything, it lost a great deal. In my opinion, it lost a lot of appeal. But these guys would be turning these tires, and they would smoke them right. A lot of them would smoke them right through the finish lights. They had a lot of horsepower, and I don't know what kind of horsepower they had back then. Probably 600-700, Jim.
No, I'm not told they had 3,000.
2,000? Okay, but now they have 10,000 or 11,000 horsepower. So that it changed quite a bit. There's the picture that I like, and in the top, you can see the spectators, and then you can see the row of dragsters that they're going down, and then they're going to, after this pair clears, they're going to come out on the track and push start coming up to the track. And I got so aggravated that it took so long to push start these cars. We built a set of roller starters and used a little Chevrolet motor, and we would start one car at a time, and we could start them so quick, it just saved so much time. And about a week or so after we got our starter system installed, NHRA came out and said, you need to have self-starting cars. So all my work was for naught. But it was pretty exciting to see a car come down with another car pushing it, and the car would be absolutely out of control, and it was really something to see these cars being pushed. It was not the safest thing to do, but with the roller star, boy, it speeded things up a lot. And when you had a lot of cars, you need to keep the program moving, and that's what we did. And that's just a picture looking down track, and you can see where the motor, the tire marks are kind of all over the place. That's a little bit exciting, especially for the driver. And that's just at the starting line. We had a good photographer, and when we were taking pictures, I wanted to see crowds, and I wanted to see our name. Les Glenn is here and with his wife, and his father was a track photographer for a number of years, so he has a lot of these pictures. So, but they're pretty interesting. The thing that I wish we had done more was I wish we had taken more pictures in the pits with the car and the driver, because the cars are nice, but it's pretty interesting to see the drivers too.
So I was going to bring this up a little bit later in the discussion, but regarding sponsorship, I see Gordon there, and we have Gordon in several of these slides. I actually talked to, I think it's the son of the gentleman that started that years ago. They seem to be one of your major sponsors, or at least there for a number of years. So I was wondering, how did you attract sponsors? How did you keep sponsors happy? Racing now is nothing but keeping sponsors happy and keeping sponsors, and the money still has to keep rolling in. So I'm just wondering what it was like back in your days.
Well, the Gordon, all of the speed shops back then were really good people, and I think I traded that sign for a set of bags for one of my cars, and I don't think they ever did anything else. We left the sign up because I didn't have anything else to put. That's the truth. And there was signage down on the pit side, and I charged nothing for that. And we wanted people to see names to make it look more exciting. So it was like pulling teeth to get people to put a sign up. It isn't like today. So and all of those signs, we sold all of those signs over the years, and now they have great value.
So you made more money selling the sponsorship signs than you did talking to the people to get them to put their names on the sign.
We might have charged $25 for a couple of signs on the pit side, and that would have been it. And we never took them down. We just left them up. So they paid $25 and it went for 8 or 10 years. We didn't care because it made the place look busy. And people make people. If you have people and they have a good time, they're going to tell somebody. And
for sure.
It's important that people are with people. People make people. That's my way of looking at it.
Can you guys hear Dean? Okay. Does he need to have the microphone a little bit?
I'm sorry. All right.
Oh.
This better? Okay. I'm sorry. So, do you have any other questions, or do you want me to? This is how they used to start the cars, push start. I like, this is the kind of stuff I like because it's got a known car and it's got lots of people. And this fellow here, the last time I looked, he was very ill. It's Larry Downs, and but it's got him putting things together. You can see the tower, you can see the car. It's an exciting picture because it shows a lot of the way things were. And the top one on the right, we used to do a parade. If we were doing exhibition cars, we would do a parade. And then if you look on the left side of that top left or top right picture, you could see yellow, and that is rosin. And when we were match racing, we would put rosin on the track, and they would do burnouts, and it would improve the traction. And it would be quite part of the show where you would be running a Ford against a Chevrolet or against something or other. And they would put the rosin down, and it became quite a show, and the announcer would get who's for Chevrolet and who's for Dodge, and it got to be a lot of fun. And the announcer was a great portion of what people saw, because if he was good, people saw a good show. So that is, and this is pretty typical of the people we had. I have a good friend who's black, and he would tell me, he'd say, I really like what you did. And I said, we didn't do anything. And he said, that's what I liked. He said, you treated us like everybody else. And I told him, I said, your money was green, and that's the only thing I cared about. And if you were happy, I was happy. And so, but he said, you treated us like everybody else. And I never thought to treat them not like everybody else. So it became a big thing with him, and it was something that I had never thought about. So that was kind of nice. This is a rain out, or it's not a total rain out. We're trying to dry the track. So we're driving the cars down the left side and back up the right. And a lot of times we get comments of people's memories. And I just read one where a guy said, I was 14 and I got to drive my father's car down the left and up the right, down the left and up the right. We did that to dry the track. And the girl on the left, she's putting the numbers back on the cars because the rain is knocking we use shoe polish, and they had to replace the shoe polish. But that's what we did to dry the track. That's my uncle in the middle, and I have no idea why he's there, because I wasn't one of his favorite people, and I reciprocated. And that's me looking slightly dejected. So this is out the window in my office, and it's a great picture because you can see the funny cars, and I don't see Jim here, but he's probably here somewhere. So, oh yeah, I'm surrounded by all my friends who are looking for a rope, and we're discussing not having a lot of cars and what to do with it. And so I've got the white hat, which they probably tore and burned, and they burned me in effigy. But we were discussing something important, and I don't specifically know, but I suspect that it was during the summer months, and it was tough to make ends meet. And so we were talking about how we might make it better. So this is why I have no hair. This is a big race, and you could see the rain, and of course the forecasts would predict rain, and if we worked hard to get the stuff in, but boy, it's hard to do. You can see it's a big race. You can see the flip-top cars, and all of and the mud and the water. It was just brutal, and it hurt your head count terribly, but we were able to get the race in. So we didn't care who you brought as long as you paid 50 cents for your kid.
Was this bring a chimp to the race day?
We don't care. If we got our 50 cents, we were happy. And a lot of the stuff I never saw. I didn't see this particular thing, and there's a lot of pictures where there's some really pretty girls, and I think, where the heck was I? Because I never saw that end of things. But I never saw the chimp or this fellow. But like I say, if he paid 50 cents, I'm for it.
Is that what the admission charge was back then?
Jim and I were talking about what we paid. When the track opened, it was $1 general admission, and it was $1 to race, and it was $1 to get in the pits.
Well, that's just outrageous. I don't know how.
I agree. It's much like today. Prices are about the same. On our last race, we charged $6 general admission, and $1 to race, and $1 to get in the pits. And we were frightened to death that the $6 would turn people away, because we thought $6 was really pretty dangerous. Hard to believe.
That's amazing.
So,
regardless of today's economy or back then, that's just ridiculous. Anyway, so we're touching now kind of on our local heroes segment. We've got 3 slides here of Jim Zakia. And was Jim able to come? Is Jim in the audience?
No, his
not.
wife is not.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
No, she's not doing so hot. Jim's a good guy.
Well, yeah, if you could comment a little bit on Jim now. We've got slides that we're going to leave till the end for Mr. Oddy here, who, again, is a very, very much of a local hero and actually kind of a national hero. But if you could speak a little bit to Jim here, and then we've got a bunch of other slides that we just kind of called local folks. So if you could speak to that.
Okay. Well, Jim Zake is from Niagara Falls. I don't think I've ever seen a car of his that wasn't gorgeous. The car that I like the most is the one at the upper right. That's one that was my favorite. He's campaigning a car very similar to the one you see on the upper left, but it's a totally, it's changed an awful lot. There's a lot of work been done on it. But he would run these cars here, and he was very successful. He took a lot of my money. So, and he's always got hey, you forgot to give me a check. And so I had a check left over for when we were running NASCAR, and I gave him a blank, and I told him, fill it out, whatever you want. So he still has that.
So, Mr. Oddy, did you ever run against Jim? Did Jim run against Jim?
Actually, we were pretty good friends. We hung out a lot together, but actually Jim ran his cars in what they called modified eliminator, and all my cars were competition eliminator cars. So we never actually raced each other, but we hung out a lot and took a bunch of Dean's money, so we were pretty happy.
When you say you took a bunch of Dean's money, what does that entail? What would it have meant on a regular basis? Let's exclude the big events for the moment, but on a week-to-week basis, what would winning your class put in your pocket?
Well, I remember the days like competition limiter to win was, we got $400, which was pretty good money. And back in the day, I kind of did that full time. That's all I did was race. So it was really important that we did well.
Did you pay simply the guy that won, or did you pay a second prize? I mean, I know how drag racing works, but if you get knocked out in the first round, you probably go home, say thanks, we'll see you next week. But how did you structure the prize money?
We paid normally we paid 4 places, and at some different races we paid round money against the winnings. And this is Jim Zake again, and this is Jim with his whole family on the left. And this is one of my favorite pictures here. Jim broke an axle or a drive shaft, and we had time to fill, so we let him push the car for a ways. And it was good exercise for him. And whenever he gets mouthy, I bring that picture up and say how much I love it. And then he has a fit and can't breathe and everything. It's just wonderful. But that's the car that I like, and he didn't do much braking. His cars were pretty complete, and they spent very little time like this. But if I had the ability to torture him, I would absolutely, in a heartbeat, do it. So this is Bob Sullivan. And that's me on the left. And before my first wife, that would be the woman to the right. We got married. And this is Shirley and Bob Sullivan. And they ran a car called, this car, and they also ran a top fuel car. And that's Bob, and they call it Pandemonium, and it's appropriate, and good friends, and now they are both gone. But wonderful, wonderful people. Larry Downs on the left side, that's Larry again. And I'm in this picture on the right. Larry Downs and I need some help.
Hexamer?
Downs and Hexamer, but who's the fellow on the left? I can't think of his name. He had a Buick Dragster. Who was it? No, this is not Dell. Paul Luzak. And Paul blew his motor, or he had a big motor, and he put the big motor into Larry Downs' car. And I think he drove it. And they were relatively successful on it. But Paul crashed a car one time on one of our big races and ended up all that was left was the cage of the car, and he was upside down on the finish line. And we didn't want to turn it over because we knew he was dead. And so we're discussing what we should do with the body. And finally he said, hey, can you get me the heck out of here? And we said, well, he's alive. I guess we can turn it over. And so he broke his finger. Good thing he landed on his head, which didn't hurt him a bit. So this is from Chippewa, and it's the Satan's Car Club. And he was also, I apologize, I'm old and I'm not very good remembering things. But he was a wonderful, he did wonderful striping and stripping and made a good living at it. And he also drove Fran Licata's car. And that, I think, is an Oldsmobile engine in that, if I'm not mistaken. So, and you can see the tires, dragster with, what, 6-inch tires? And they don't do that anymore. They're big tires now. The car on the left and on the car on the right originally was Tommy Ivo's car. Ivo was an actor who got into drag racing, and he had a car called the Buick Master. It had 4 Buick motors in it, and they put a part of a car to make it look like a car on the rear of it. But it was 4-wheel drive, and it was very impressive. There'll probably be pictures in here coming along. It wasn't particularly fast, but it made a lot of smoke, and when we were doing promotions, it was pretty exciting. I like the odd cars, and I think most of the people did too. So it put people, I tell people to put seats on their seats. This is a Clutch Artist dragster. It's this little C dragster. There's a club in Buffalo that's been around forever, and even some of the members are still around, but this is their little C dragster, and it's a good little car.
You know whose station wagon that is?
Yes, if I don't think it can back up. I saw it. I can't remember who it was, but
Dan Cutini.
Dan Catini was a member of the Clutch Artists, and he was a business manager probably for the Clutch Artists.
That was a killer car. Hard to beat that car.
Yep. Yeah, the station wagon in the back. E-gas. So, okay. This is Jerry Hammam. Hammam ran the track 1961 and part of 1962, and the car he's got there is a little Mustang with a 289 motor, 289 cubic inches. It's blown, and it's on fuel, nitro. And this is the car stopping, and I don't know who he's running on the far side, but that's how they stop them.
Would that have been, to the photo to the right, obviously you have a full-body car against a rail. Is that some kind of like a competition eliminator thing, or a match race, or what?
Is there were national records for all of these cars, and so Jerry's car was called a double B altered, and this car here would probably be an A-gas dragster. So whatever the record was, they would run each other using their records. So one car would get a later start than the other. Handicap's called.
Oh, okay, all right. Not bracket racing.
No.
Bracket racing came along
Later.
much later.
Yeah, much later.
Okay.
This is early because you can see the tower in the picture on the left, and the tower was pretty shaky, and I have a picture of a very famous announcer, and he's standing, and you had to stand on the floor joist, because if you didn't, you go through to the first floor. The ceiling's falling down, and it's just the way it was back in the day, and we ran it that way, and nobody thought a thing about it. That's just the way it was. We were glad to run.
Well, it was all that sponsorship money that you collected that.
Oh yeah, I don't know what I did with that $72. All right, we had this was our first snow out on the left, and these fellows had come in from Massachusetts to go racing, and we got snowed out. This little dragster here, I believe the fellow on the left is with the hat on is I don't know what my relation. He'd be my uncle's son, Rick Johnson. So he runs Johnson Building Company now. So these are just These are just, now this is Valleport on the bottom right, and I was his crew, probably in '67, I was his crew, which is pretty frightening, in Florida when we won the Florida Winter Nationals. This car on the right is Tommy Ivo's Wagon Master. This is the Summer Nationals. This little car on the left is a fellow that came from above Barrie. Anyway, a bit north of Barrie, Ontario, and he would come every week, and he was not a winner, but he was a good guy, and he liked to go racing. So you imagine coming from Barrie. Yeah, Aurelia. He was from Aurelia, and he was a really, really nice guy.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to use this slide was you see the NHRA in the left, and you see the NASCAR Summer Nationals on the right. So
Yes.
what I'd like you to speak about, and Jim, if you have some thoughts on this, I'd like to hear them as well. Was the track everybody knows NHRA. It's been around since, Wally Bell started, or not Wally Bell, but Parks started it years ago. Was the track NHRA scheduled or sanctioned when you opened it up, and how did you become a NASCAR sanctioned track?
We ran in 1965. We ran NHRA regional meet, and we had 9,007 people in that. And Dalvin Dahl was the divisional director for the Division I, which we were in, and he called the race. It rained for a couple of minutes and quit. We had 9,007 people in the place. The rain quit, the sun came out, so we had all these people. Darwin had called the race without asking me, and I was fit to be tied. So we had people coming in and people going out. And so ultimately the race was called, and we ran the race a month later. So they took a quarter of that, because that was NHRA. For this race, it took 1/4 of the money for them. And they rescheduled the race for a month later, and so they took a quarter of that also. And I was more than fit to be tied, because he had no right to do that. And there was a riot over the money, and it was really a bad deal, and he should never have done that.
So is that what precipitated, how did you become a NASCAR sanctioned track?
When we ran this event in 1965, they had a meeting of Division I on the East Coast, and all the operators and managers were there, and Darwin Dahl was telling us the changes and who got what races. And when they announced the races, we didn't get one. And I got up, and it was like 150 people, and I said, well, what's going on here? We didn't get a race. They said, oh, you had one. Darwin told you, you had one last year. And I was fit to be tied. So I went to the fellow that was my promotional fellow, Ian Micklethwaite. He and I walked out, and we had a quick discussion about what we should do. And we decided we were going to call NASCAR Drag Race Division and see if we can run over there to Pittsburgh and ask him. We want to run under the sanction, and we wanted to run some of their big events. And so we called up Ed Witzberger, who was the head of NASCAR drag racing, and he said, come on over. And so we walked back in, and I was just I left, and Ian got to run his big mouth. He opened the door, and Darwin's up in a place like this, and Darwin's up talking, and he shouted above everything. He said, hey, Darwin. And Darwin says, what? And Ian said, I don't care where you put your races, but if you put your race against one of our big races, we will kill you. And we slammed the door and walked out.
That's pretty subtle. So.
Oh, yeah. I got you have in your records a Western Union note that Darwin sent to me. Dean, you're no longer sanctioned with the NHRA. And I said, Darwin, you already knew that. We told you we quit. So we went over and talked to Ed Witzberger, and he said, well, what do you want? And we said, oh, we'd like to run the NASCAR Summer Nationals. He said, okay.
How many years did NASCAR
I think
sanctioned drag
we
racing?
ran a couple of years with NASCAR,
Okay.
and we ran a lot of their big meets. They were cheap compared to everything else, and they had a lot of we had the ability to get a lot of interesting cars. They ran a Coca-Cola cavalcade of cars, which was it toured mostly in the eastern part of the central to the eastern part of the world. And great shows, great shows, but they weren't the very biggest of the big, but they were big, and they did all of the great shows. They didn't break a lot. The good people, and so we ran them a couple of times, and we were very satisfied. We ran a lot of record runs for NASCAR, and we did a lot of stuff with NASCAR.
Jim, did you run NASCAR sanctioned races? And was there any difference, short of whose name is on the tower, at a cost of, what, $15 or whatever we have established for that, was there any difference running NHRA versus NASCAR?
Well, everything was pretty much the same. I did run that event, and we were pretty happy. We set the record in the double-A gas super for NASCAR, which made it a pretty good day. I think we won the event, so it was all good for us.
No difference, though, in sort of a different sanctioning. Everything else basically was the same in
Yeah,
terms
you
of...
couldn't tell the difference.
Okay.
Other than the signage.
Okay. So, all right. So now we're entering kind of what we call our Cars and Stars thing.
Exhibition cars.
Exhibition cars. I mean, this was, again, I don't mean to harp on this. This was kind of my era, the Hemi under glass, the LA Dart, wheel standers like this. So we've got a fair number of slides. If you could just kind of comment on the names, and maybe we can get into this later, but I'm interested in, we're going to see Garlits, we're going to see Shirley, we're going to see McEwen, we're going to see all these people in a couple seconds here. Can you comment on who was great to work with, who maybe was a little bit difficult to work with, just kind of stuff like that?
I would say that there were only two cars that I was unhappy with over the years. I had a couple of cars that didn't show, but for the most part, everybody showed. This is Bill Shrewsbury in the LA Dart on the far side, and the Hemi under glass, which would be Bob Riggle. Bob Riggle was a driver when Jay Leno went on his head at a round racetrack not too long ago. Bob Riggle died shortly after that, not related, but he died. But these were good. These were a lot of fun, and they were scary as heck. When they ran, I would go in the tower. I couldn't watch them because when they started, they didn't spend a lot of time on the track. We never had to cut the grass. They were off in the dingweeds, and I had a deal one time where Bill called me in the middle of the Saturday night, and he said, I wrecked my car. And I said, okay. And I said, well, I still want you to come. And he said, well, there's nothing left. And I said, well, I advertised you. I want people to know why you're not here. And I said, who did you get to replace you? And he said, I didn't get anybody. And I said, well, surprise me, and we'll have, so there's two cars here. So he got somebody up, and they got another wheel stander, and they showed up. And when Bill showed up, I don't think there was anything in his car that was worth anything. There was just total garbage. It was just totally wrecked. But he was parked outside, so the people had to walk by him to see why he wasn't on the track. So, but he wrecked that car. He wrecked a lot of cars. All these wheel stander guys, they wrecked a lot of cars. So, and a lot of times they'd go down the track, and they'd want to get a better track so they come back there. That's what the car looked like, and that was parked outside at the entrance. But the cars would go down the track, and if they weren't happy, they'd turn around and come back up the track. And you don't know if they're going to stop. And I lost a Christmas tree once to a fellow that had, the car was called a mystery mover. He was trying to get, I was booking cars for a reunion, and he was saying, well, I had the mystery mover. And I said, I don't remember the car. And he described the car, and I said, I don't remember the car. And he said, I ran over your tree. And I said, now I know who you are. So he ran over, brand new tree. I hadn't had the tree for a week, and he ran the tree over.
So how much, these guys all came to do match races, right? Am I correct? in
Well,
that?
they didn't start out match racing, but we match raced them. And you're going to come, we're going to give you as much grief as you can. So if your car doesn't run, you're going to get beat by somebody better. So we ran them all.
But you paid these guys to come,
Yep.
right? Okay,
Yep.
Shrewsbury and how much did you pay, like the wheel stander guys?
700, 750. Now, that car there, I own half that car. He borrowed $5,000 for me and signed a paper that said I own half the car. I was with a group of people at one time, and there were, I don't know, 15 or 20 people, and everybody in that group owned half that car. He sold that car to everybody. I said, yeah, I own half that car. They said, yeah, we do too. This is Nicole Moran. She is, the fellow on the right is Brutus, Brutus is Lou Arrington. And his hair, you can tell the California guys because their hair is just perfect. And the girl, Nicole, was from Montreal, and when she wanted to be impressive, first of all, she was impressive. And we were doing a show at the Master Street Armory in Buffalo, and Ian, my promotional guy, came in with her. He had picked her up at the airport, and she had this body stocking on, and it was winter, and we were standing around with all the clutch ups, and I was started to do introductions, and she had this long coat on. When she took the coat off, I couldn't remember her name, and then I couldn't remember Ian's name, and then I couldn't remember my name, and I just turned around and walked away. But she was really something. And at the end, and I haven't written too much about this, but at the end, our deal was that she had we had to pay for a motel or hotel and food and run her back and forth. And at the end, I was taking her back to the airport, and she goes, "Oh, Dean, it's so nice to work for you. First time I don't have to sleep with somebody." And if I'd have been on my toes, I should have said, "But we do have one more day's work." But I was too slow, and I missed my opportunity. To say she was stunning would be an understatement. But she gave that knit stocking a workout, I'll tell you. She was well put together. So, yeah, back to cars. It's just match racing. This is Pee Wee Wallace on the left. Phil Castronova. Yep. And the Virginian. So, and that you could see the signs. And so I have like $20 or $30 worth of signs. But we left them up because it made things look busy. This is Tasker Ford. This is 1965 when we had the 9,007 people, and we had not enough seating, and the people were lined up along the drag strip, and we couldn't control, but we just ran the race. And they were 5 feet from the race car. And we were really full.
I thought the interesting thing about this shot is that Tasca is still multi-generational, because
Yep.
Tasca's still a funny car guy.
Yep.
And still
Yep.
getting the job done. So I don't know what generation Tasca this would be, but weren't they were New England based, I think, right? Rhode Island or Massachusetts,
Yep.
something like that. So, Jim, would you have ever, I'm a little confused on A-gas and comp gas and all the rest of that stuff. Is this a car you would have run against?
Oh, no, well, AFX car, if it fit in competition eliminator, but it was actually a separate class, I'm pretty sure, where the AFX just raced against AFX cars. That was kind of the beginning of the funny car.
But we did a deal once where a car broke or didn't show or something,
Yeah.
and we ran Jim against one of these cars, handicapped probably.
That was a fill-in.
How'd you do?
I think, actually, if I remember right, I'm pretty sure it was, Bruce Larson with a Cobra.
But you could lie because nobody could remember.
Well, and I don't remember, but I didn't even know what I was doing. I just went there to race. The next thing you know, I'm doing a match race with Bruce Larson, who was a pretty famous individual at that point.
Sure.
Yeah, it was an A sports car. It was a Cobra. It really ran fast. I'm sure I didn't win, or maybe I would have remembered it.
No, we think you won, right? Didn't you win? Yeah, he won. Everybody knew you won.
Okay.
Okay, this is Jungle Jim, and I think this is Jungle Jim number 2 car. When these guys got going, they'd have an A car or number 1 car and number 2 car. And if I couldn't get the number 1 car, we would buy the number 2 car, and nobody would know the difference anyway.
Yeah, they would.
Most of the spectators wouldn't have a clue.
Oh, yeah. If Jungle Pam wasn't with him?
But Jungle Pam never was at Niagara, and I wish I could open a racetrack just to have her show up. So,
She was the show.
oh, and the nice thing about her is it never seemed to have gone to her head. She always seemed to be pretty level-headed, and she just never seemed to have changed. I just love that to death because she didn't get nutty.
She worked on the car.
Did she?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was part of the crew, and I've seen some stuff where she said, yeah, you see all of the fancy dresses and the low cut this and the short that, and she said it doesn't show the time when they're traveling between places and you're sleeping in the back of a truck and they're bouncing around and no food, and you don't see any of that. You just see a skimpy outfit and a car making a lot of tire smoke. She said you didn't see the work that went into this stuff. So I always liked her, and most men do, but she just seemed to be very level-headed, and it never seemed to go to her head. And she's still around and makes appearances, and that would be on my bucket list to meet her. I just think she's the best thing. This is just it's just another race. You can see the weather's really shaky here on the right, and this is one of the few pictures on the very right is Ian Micklethwaite, who does my promotion, and Mr. Cosmopolitan. But I ran the racetrack, he ran the promotion, and he didn't have much to do. We ran a good show, and he didn't have anything to do with it. He just put the people in, and I did the rest. I had a good crew. I just really, if you had to, I was just so fortunate. When I hired everybody, there wasn't anybody that didn't love the racing, and there wasn't anybody that wasn't honest. There was no favorites, and somebody got a favor, and there was none of that. And so, which is very important, because you don't want people to think that, hey, Jim's here, he's going to get a treat. We didn't give Jim any treats. We made it as life as impossible as we possibly could. Him and Zakia.
So while on the subject of promotion, let's talk about that for just a second. We're all familiar with the ad, the radio ad. How did that actually come about?
We were in WKBW in the recording lab, and Ian was saying, I want this different sound, and he wanted this Sunday Niagara, and so everybody's in there screaming Sunday Niagara. It was like a nutcase, and finally one of the tech guys said, do you want this sound? And he screamed this Sunday Niagara, and Ian said, that's the sound I want, and that's the sound that we used it on all of our ads.
So that was just a tech guy from the radio
Yep.
that did that?
Yep, he wasn't supposed to be doing any recording.
Okay.
But he got listening to all of us arguing back and forth, and he said, is this the sound you want? And he did it, and Ian said, yeah, why didn't you do that sooner?
Okay, so apart from the famous radio ads, how else did you promote the track?
We did mailers, and we would mail out, I remember one time we mailed out 33,000 pieces of mailing. 33,000. Everything had to be by zip code, or in Canada, postal code. Everything had to be in order, and we had to call the post office and say we're coming. And it would normally take probably 2 van loads to do this stuff. So to do 33,000, I might have 20 people in my house, and somebody be stamping, and somebody be licking, and somebody be sorting, and it was, I wish we had taken pictures, because when people say, oh, it's really hard to promote now, yeah, you go and you're taping something and it pops up on somebody's screen, And they go, wow, that was a lot of work. You ain't seen nothing till you've seen 33,000 pieces of literature. More match races. These Stonewoods and Cook were, they ran early gassers and very famous, and not a lot of people knew Stonewoods and Cook. 2 of the 3 people involved were black. Nobody ever knew that. This is Connie Coletta, and that's Miss NASCAR on the far right. And there's some pictures of him with a trophy, and he's all dirty and clean, dirty, and he's been working on his car. And there's a pretty girl, and he's got his arm around the girl, and I don't think the girl wants anybody touching her, because everybody in that group was not very clean. We've been working hard. And he's looking at he's holding this trophy. He didn't win, but they did the Kendall people did the promotion, and so they've got, the Kendall's got a big trophy, and he's holding the trophy. Well, he didn't win, but nobody knew.
I must admit, I didn't realize, till we saw the slide, I didn't realize Coletta drove a funny car. Did he drive a funny car before he got into a top fuel car?
No, dragster first.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, now the other car that's Connie Coletta also. That's a little bit later. And then he went back to dragsters. This is Tommy Ivo. He's quite the showman. That's his car, his trailer. And I think he had a Corvette in there somewhere. And I have a picture of him down by the falls. So it was kind of nice.
So just to interject here for a second, I'm sure everybody's been over to the center, but the top fuel car that we have on the floor was actually built by Tommy Ivo in 1963. The records that we have indicate that he built somewhere between 10 and 12 chassis, and he became known as, I'm sure most of you know, as TV Tommy Ivo. He appeared in numerous TV shows and a couple movies, I think, in the 60s, but he competed at Niagara, right, on more than one occasion.
Yep.
And I think it's pretty cool that we've got one of his cars next door, and here he is.
Yep, and he's a good guy. Okay, Garlits, really not much you can say about him. He's been there, he's done that, he's done everything. Innovator, old guy, he's got to be 93. And very successful, worked hard at it. I don't know how he goes to as many things as he does, and people like me will go up and say, Don, you remember me? And he says, oh, certainly I remember. Yeah, right. But he's a good guy, and he's paid his dues. He is the king.
Well, he was the innovator when the motor blew up and tore off half of his right foot. My understanding is that's when he said, maybe it's a little safer if I put all this hardware behind my head instead of in front of my face. And so he was the innovator of the rear engine. There
had been some rear engine dragsters around. We had, Stephen Piper Brothers had a dragster that was a short wheelbase car, that very innovative, and the thought, everything was behind the driver, which is kind of what you wanted. But it wasn't it was a lower class car than Top Fuel. It was like a B dragster or something like that, but very innovative.
Jim, did you ever have any desire to go Top Fuel, funny car, anything?
Oh, no, not really. I was pretty busy with what I was doing. I did crew on some fuel funny cars and kind of got itching to do it, but it was back in the days when we were hurting a lot of drivers, and I didn't want to be responsible for someone getting hurt or burned up. I had a lot of friends that were getting burnt and killed, and so I kind of stayed away from it.
This is Don Prudhomme on the far left, and then the fellow in the center on the left is
Roland
Leon. Now, he died a couple of years ago, but Prudhomme is still around. A tough car to beat. This is Jeannie Prue, and that's Bill Shrewsbury on the top left. And these are just race pictures, that's all.
Isn't that McEwen on the lower right here? And we started or Prudhomme and McEwen became famous match racers, the mongoose and the snake.
Yes, Prudhomme, the snake versus the mongoose. And they worked hard to promote it. They're good for them. They worked hard at it. This car on the lower right, I think, is Shirley Muldowney before she was famous.
Yeah, these are all Shirley's.
Yep. And I like Shirley. Shirley's always been nice to me. And what I like about Shirley is she spent the time with the youngsters. They'd come up and they'd ask her questions, and she didn't go buzz off. She spent the time with these people, and I like that. And I know my daughter was somewhere where Shirley was, and she said, do you know my dad? I'm Dean Johnson. She said, oh, absolutely, and blah, blah, blah. And she was so nice to my daughter, and she didn't have to be. So I like that. This is Paula Murphy on the left, and I had published a picture of a fellow underneath one of her cars, and I had said, I wonder who's under the car, and I got this email, and all you can see is from the waist down, you see a pair of feet, and the fellow said, that was me, and it was her son. So somehow I got their phone number, and I called him up, and I was asking him how everybody was doing, and I said, how is your mother? And he said, here, you ask her, and he handed the phone over to Paula, and I got to talk to her. And I thought, well, how lucky am I to all these people that were out and about and all these experiences. And so I got to speak to her, and I thought, boy, I'm so lucky. And she has died since, but I just thought she was so nice. So, pretty lucky for me. Blue Max, and I don't know who the other car is. The Blue Max, that's a nice crowd too, by the way, and it's cold. Look at all the heavy clothing. And we had a photo cell go out, and if a photo cell goes out, you can't get a elapsed time on the car. And so I was down adjusting the photo cell when they turned that car loose, which is why I have no hearing today. And probably that picture will show up in here somewhere. But when I had my head down on the track, all of the dust was there was nothing on the ground. Any dust was picked up by the exhaust noise. And I would have known that if I had to reset this stupid photo cell. But I had my face right down on the ground, and all this dirt and dust was held off the ground by the noise on this car.
So just for a sec, speaking of the coats in the background, when did Niagara open, and how long was your normal season? When would you'd run through when? September, October?
No, it was difficult to make ends meet after Labor Day. We would tend to pack it in by Labor Day. And we would open as soon as we could. And I remember we opened one time, and it was probably Mother's Day, and we went, oh boy, how are we going to get around this? So we went out and bought a gazillion roses, and every woman that came in got a rose. So we kind of got off the hook a little bit. But it's tough to run a race on Mother's Day when Mother's not happy about you going drag racing. So this is Arnie Beswick. Arnie Beswick just had a birthday. I think he's 95. And I have a friend that lives down near him. And I said, I have this photo. Would you please ask Arnie to sign it? So Arnie signed it, and he said, that's not me in the photo. So I have a photo that's signed by not Arnie Beswick, or signed by Arnie Beswick that's not Arnie Beswick.
So this photo that we're looking at?
Yep.
That's not?
No. I don't know who it is.
Oh, I guess we didn't vet that very good, did we?
So,
wow.
But he said,
That's
signed
interesting.
It. He said, I signed it, but it's not me.
Jim, we were so proud of that. Who knew?
So I sent a bunch of stuff to Arnie to be signed. I wanted his autograph, and he was out. He's a farmer. They call him the farmer, and he didn't send. The stuff never came, and I waited a month or so, and I called him, and he said, "Oh, I had the back of my car open, and the wind blew it out, and I about had a hernia." And I had some other stuff, and I sent him the other stuff, and I said, please be careful. And I got a call. He said, you aren't going to believe this. He said, there was a farmer up plowing his field, and he found all your pictures. So he signed everything that I sent to him. So if you need something signed by Arne Beswick, I probably have 100 or so pieces. He had a major fire at his barn. It burned all of his memorabilia and all of his old cars up. He had nothing left. And he's probably one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Aside from that being him, not being him. I don't know who the dragster is. The bottom one is a Ford engine, which is kind of rare, and it's Herbie Rogers out of London, Ontario. And it's an ejected Ford, which is, they call it a cammer. And Herbie has been gone for a long time, but it was a good running car. This car here, I don't know what it is. And I just like the picture here that's kind of behind us. I don't know who that is. Hard to tell on the dragsters.
I think we put the Ed Pink car in because he was a master engine builder, and Mr. Pink just passed away, I think, within the last couple of weeks, I believe.
Did he just die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very recently.
But he was very old. He was... Oh, I thought he was a bit older than that. Well, no, if you had one of his engines, you had a good one. These are just cars that they paid to get in and go racing.
Yeah, we're segueing into not fuelies, not funny cars, but just all the other classes that you ran. And maybe you could speak to this, and Jim could certainly speak to this, about the various other classes that ran, and without getting overly technical, just the differences between, I'm assuming that's a gasser, and honestly, I don't know what you would consider the car on the right. So can you speak to that a little bit, Jim?
Yeah, well, the gassers are generally like full-bodied coupes. Back in the day, they ran in modified eliminator, A gas through F gas with different size motors and weight brakes. And then the Royal T car here, that's let's see, that would be an A altered car. It's not supercharged, and that would run in competition eliminator.
That's where you were.
Yeah. Yeah, we raced him a lot. Can't think of his name, but he was good. Yeah, more altereds. Double A fuel altereds and a double A altered.
That's Charlie Havlin.
With the Canada flag?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, were most of these guys from the area, the Western New York area, Canada?
Well, the car here on the right on the upper part is Charlie Havlin. His son is still racing, and was from a cow farm. And his father, he said, I'm going racing, and his father said, not till the chores are done. So he couldn't leave till the cows were milked, and then he'd have to get home in time to milk the cows. Father said, no, you're not leaving until all the chores are done. And I have spoken quite a bit to his son, and they're out campaigning the same car, believe it or not. This is a rear-engine car built by Stephen Piper, and this was before Don Garlits was doing rear-engine. But you see, everything here is behind the driver.
This is a Sidewinder.
The Sidewinder, yeah. The engine's about across lots. Very innovative. We ran a lot of dragsters. This fellow on the bottom, I'm not sure, is probably E.J. Potter. I'm not sure. There were two. There was a Ford, and there was E.J. Potter, and this may be the Ford, and that's Potter there. Yep. I toured Australia with him, and Shrewsbury and Jess Tyree. And this one here is a fuel bike, I believe, Top Fuel. Okay. And this is a good show. I don't think that's EJ. I think that's there's another group, and that's not EJ.
Were the bikes part of the weekly show?
None of us were particularly cared about bikes, and so as a result, that we did them dirt, and we didn't care. And finally, I had a little tiny girl come up to me, and she said, I don't like the way you're running the bikes. And she ran a bike, and she probably weighed 95 pounds soaking wet. And I said, if you don't like the way we run the bikes, you run the damn things. I said, we're not interested. I said, when you're done, give me a list of who gets what and leave me alone. And so the next week, she ran the bikes. They never ran any better. And the guy said, we don't know what you did, but we love the way you do it. And I said, go see that little itty-bitty girl over there. And I was talking to her one time and about bikes, and my wife-to-be was there, and she said, I'm going to kill that girl. I don't like her. She's standing too close to you. And I said, oh, okay. But he ran the bikes. She did a wonderful job, and the bikes weren't second class anymore. We ran a few jets, and these were Art Arfon's jets. And they were okay. They were better at night. And most of the people like Jim don't like them because they claim they oiled the track, the exhaust. We didn't care.
Maybe I didn't notice in the photographs. Did the track have lights? Did you run at night?
We ran, I got permission to put lights up. We put them up. I spent probably $125,000. We ran a couple of races, and the town said, we don't like them, take them down.
So where did they go?
They went to, it was called Empire at the time, Empire Drag
Oh,
Strip.
another drag strip, okay.
Yeah, and they forgot to pay me.
Well, perhaps they'll see this.
Well,
If you're in the audience, anybody.
I sued them, and they offered me $3,500 for the $100,000 lights. And I was not happy, and my lawyer said, take the money. And I said, I don't think so. And he said, take the money. And I said, why would I want the money? And he said, because if you don't take the money, they probably will kill you. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, they were kind of from the underworld, and they would be offended at you. So I said, you send me that $3,500. So I paid the lawyer. I ended up with about $2,700, $2,500 for the $100,000 I wanted. Hell on Wheels was a wheel stander. It was interesting. It was just another wheel stander. A lot of people like them. Little Red Wagon, always a good one. The two cars here, the one is the Volkswagen, I can't think of the name, and the Stagecoach, this is Stagecoach West, the one nearest us. And the other bug, I was at Norwalk one time when this car on the behind here hit the rail and got turned around and upside down, and the motor went out of the car and sailed. They had an ambulance there, and it went over the ambulance and went over a light pole and landed out where nobody was standing, fortunately. But it was pretty exciting because it was still running high RPM when it went by me. So these are brothers, believe it or not. And they were okay. They never impressed me, and I don't think we ever paid them. They weren't good enough that I should have paid them. But they had to learn somewhere, so that's why they were there.
Well, we put these in because Jim was just fascinated by the bugs. So this is our ode to Jim Galbraith. We put these slides in.
Well, they were free, and it was the 60s and 70s were very innovative, and we had stuff, but we had people on bicycles with rockets strapped to their back, and there was a lot of strange stuff out there. This was a Corvette wheel stander, and it got upside down. And no big deal. They went over and flipped it on his feet, and he was good to go. This was a car called Double Trouble. It crashed at Niagara before I was there. And I don't know any of the details other than nobody was hurt, I guess, or killed. And that's all I know. 2 Chevrolet motors. This is the Hearst Harriols. I like this car. And we had run it one time, and we booked it again. And Harriols, it was very hairy, and they had a problem with its steering, and finally some kid came up, and the car wanted to pull to the right or pull to the left. And he said, well, why don't you just put the steering so that it steers in the opposite direction so it'll go straight. So they did that. And up here, one of the engines quit or something, and he got off track and tested our barrier, and Joe Schubeck. And when he got out, we had telephone poles in the ground with big heavy cables, and the telephone pole was right next to where he was sitting. If it had been over a bit more, Joe Schubeck wouldn't be Joe Schubeck. So that was the last run of the Hearst Harriolas. I loved it. There's a picture where Kendall's giving this trophy to Connie Coletta for no reason. So, which is great. I thought it was wonderful. You know, it's a great promotion. This was the car that ran and won the NASCAR Summer Nationals. It's called the Probe. And I'm in the picture, and they won't let me stand next to the girl for some reason. I don't know why.
I liked the photo on the right where you have the Soul Eliminator.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was
We did
pretty cool.
stupid stuff. And we could get away with it back then, and it was no big deal. We didn't think anything of it. We just thought the radio station would like it, and so we did a Soul show. And it was a lot of fun, I thought. And nobody was offended. We had a good time.
So this was our winners slide, obviously. So that lets me ask the question, what was the most money you would have paid to win like a Top Fuel or a Funny Car for a big show? And then on a regular, I think you already said you paid like $400. Jim, did you become rich winning your class week after week at Niagara Dragway?
Ask Jim what I did to him in the later years when you won a week.
Thing got tired of me. One Sunday afternoon, I had one comp eliminator, and I go up to get paid, and he says, "You can't come back next week." I said, "Oh no, I'll be back." No, you won't. You're going to take a break, he says. So that lasted a while, and we finally came to an agreement, and I'm pretty sure we raised the following week.
So what would have been the most money you would have won? I mean, if you don't need to tell me.
What'd you win?
Yes, tell me this. What was the most? And did you pay in cash when everybody went up to the payout window? Was it cash?
Dean was all checks, no cash.
Did you hustle off to the bank right away?
No, I never had, there was no rubber there. It was all good.
That's good.
Yeah, some of the bigger events, there'd be some contingency stuff, or different people would kick in for winning a complimentary. You might a real good Sunday, you go home with $1,000, which is pretty good money back in the day.
When you ran the NASCAR Summer Nationals, Dean, what was the top prize money at that?
Well, there would have been a lot of contingency money, and I tell you the truth, I don't remember. But it probably would have been $500,000, $800,000 plus contingency money. I don't remember. You couldn't live on it unless you were really pretty competitive. Back to what Jim said about me telling him not to. We told him, if you ran an eliminator, what happens? There were some cars that killed the eliminators. He happened to own one, and so they say, "Oh, Addi's going to be at Niagara. I'm going to go somewhere else." And so I fixed it so Addi wasn't at Niagara every week, and so they knew Addi was out somewhere, and they had to figure out where he was. But they knew he wasn't going to be at Niagara, so we always had a good car count when he was elsewhere. And I did that for quite a while. But the cars were so good, they killed the class. Say, well, I can't win, but I'll be runner-up. Well, I said, take a break and go race, bother somebody else.
So when you weren't at Niagara, where else did you run, Jim?
Oh, everywhere.
Well, we raced a lot back in the day. Back in the day, Lancaster, they'd run on Thursday nights. So we'd run there on Thursday night. And then Friday nights, Empire was running. And Saturday night, we'd go to Dragway Park, Yuga. And then Sunday, if anything left, we'd go race at Niagara. So it was, we were busy.
So now, Well, actually, we'll talk on your career more in just a couple seconds here. Okay, so theoretically, you could run 4 nights a week.
Correct.
Okay, well, and if you would win
Yeah.
every 4 night, that probably helped out quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, it was, and I was kind of doing that for a living for quite a while. So it was worth doing.
Okay, cool. Now, we had to,
Oh, boy.
sorry, we had to throw a couple of these in. What is a racetrack without beauty queens? And so we have 2 of these. Dean, if you would care to comment on any of this, or care to not comment on any of this.
We were, during the summer months, it was tough to make ends meet, and we were doing a lot of silly stuff to try and put people in. This was not a thing. I wouldn't ever do this again because I hired a model once, and I don't ever want to do that again. It's like going to a meat market. I don't know how the women could do that. And I wrote about this process of hiring a woman, and I wrote at the start my apologies to, and it was Audrey Hagan, and who was very smart, and she's very smart, very good looking. And I had to interview her, and I don't ever want to do that again. I am not, I'm a farm kid. I am not from the city, and anything to do with, it was like going to a meat market. It was terrible. It was just terrible.
I got a question. Who numbered them?
I don't know.
And what did that mean?
I don't know. I don't know. When I see pictures in here, and there's some really, really pretty girls, and I never saw these girls. I was running. All I did was run a racetrack, and I was not interested in anything else. And I look back and I go, I can't believe I didn't see that girl. And I see these pictures, and I go, on the other hand, she's probably as old as me right now, so she's no more interested in me than I have in her. But these girls were pretty good sports, but I can't imagine doing that. I just can't. This is.
Look at you.
Oh yeah, boy, you want to talk about a nerd, that's me. The best part about this girl, Paul Zagoda, who is a racer, took her to his senior prom or her senior prom.
Really?
Yep. So, unbelievable. And she's sitting on Bob Sullivan's dragster on the wheel. And you can see Sullivan's name on it. But that was Paul Zagoda's girlfriend. Who'd have thought? That's me in all my splendor on the left, my wife. I had a friend that painted this thing with "Trust Me" on it. And this is me and my wife after our reunion, which we were going to make a lot of money and we didn't. and I had to work for another 10 years to get out of debt. So, but I had a lot of T-shirts. We had 2,000 or 3,000 extra T-shirts at the end of it. So, this is Dizzy Dean on the left. I didn't know that. Dizzy Dean published Wheelspin, a magazine in Canada, and that's Miss NASCAR. And the only reason she's there is she's got to be sleeping with somebody, I'm guessing, and somebody from NASCAR. And then this is John Lundberg.
Maybe it was John.
No,
So
it
this
wasn't
is
John. John didn't know her.
Is this, what was his nickname, Iron Lung or something to that effect?
John Lundberg.
Right.
He's a wonderful announcer and a wonderful person. They took this girl who was running around in this bathing suit, and they put her in Bill Shrewsbury's wheel stander. So Bill Shrewsbury's got a fire suit. He's strapped into a seat. He's got a fire suit, a helmet, and goggles and all that. And they put this girl in without a helmet, in a bathing suit, and they told her to hang on to the wheel, to the cross members. And she said, "Can't be anything wrong with that." And Bill went out, and the car goes up so high it gets on the rear skid plates. Well, when it gets up that high, it stops. So, but she didn't. And so so the car goes up, and so she's going up, and the car stopped going up, so she's banging her head on the roof of the thing. And then, of course, the car quits, and she comes down, and then he goes back up again, and I can't imagine what she was thinking. And I can't imagine and this was all NASCAR. They put her into this. This was somebody's girlfriend, and I think they were trying to get rid of her. But they have pictures of her. The car gets up, and when it gets on the wheel bars, it stops, and she goes up and bashes her head on the thing, and then she's out of sight down on side, and then she's back up, and it was wonderful. I'm glad NASCAR did it, because I wouldn't have had the brass. And they probably were trying to get rid of her, is the only thing I could figure.
So we thought we'd throw a couple of these in. This is basically the people that made the place run.
Yep.
Okay, all the people that helped you out.
This is my secretary, Short Sherry, and we were at the Massive Street Armory, and these were the girls that we used, and then we brought in this Nicole girl, and all of our girls were very pretty, and she just made them look not pretty. She was so stunning. And then this is Ray Jones, who's now gone. This is Paul Schneider, and he's gone. And I don't know who this is, but she was reading the clock reader. Yeah, everybody's gone. This is on the left top. This is
This was why you had to work another 10 years, right? Wasn't because of the reunion '96 and putting that.
Say the question.
Didn't you say you did this big reunion and it
Yeah.
didn't come out quite as well as you had hoped?
Yeah, yeah, it's an understatement. Yeah, it didn't turn out well. The track had closed. This is 1 or 2 years ago. There's Bobby Pine on there. I thought Bob would be here today. I can't think of his name. Me and then Randy's there. Who's Bob Kelman on the second from the right? This is a Christmas tree that we built. We spent like $33,000 on it because we were stupid and we could. And I sold it for $2,000. And it was, I'll tell you how big it was. Each light, there were 5 spotlights in it to make it work. So it was like 35 feet tall. This is a magazine that we put out. This is at Lancaster. My wife, myself, Jim Zakia on the right. Faye, I can't think of the name. I don't remember who's on the left. And the picture on the right, on the bottom, is a Christmas tree working. It was a working Christmas tree. It went out to a speed shop on the East Coast.
Sunday! This Sunday, presenting Challenge 72. Auto Racing's Big Go September at fabulous Sunday Niagara. This is it. The race racers are talking about. Challenge 72, where you're going to see some of the roughest, toughest, wheel-to-wheel competition racing ever staged in Niagara. And without a doubt, just one of the unreal drivers they all got to get by is Buffalo's own incredible Jimmy Oddy, the man who went to Indy Summer Nationals just 2 weeks ago and blew the doors off the finest comp cars in the country. Yeah, the word is out, baby. This Sunday, everyone's heading to Niagara and the giant Challenge 72. One sensational day only. No reserve seats. Gates open at 10 a.m. Championships at 3 p.m. sharp. Free overnight camping for fans and drivers towing in for the big meet. And don't forget, once again, as promised, the track will be spray coated before the race time with amazing, revolutionary, world-breaking VHT track lock. This is it, with free 72 Niagara Racers yearbooks to the first 1,000 fans in the pits at Sunday Niagara. This Sunday, the championship of championships, the fabulous Challenge 72. Don't miss it. We'll see you there.
Oh boy.
So we did that just because we could, okay? And we had to hear Sunday Niagara again. But this is our very subtle way of segueing into the great Mr. Jim Oddy, who we are honored to have here, along with Dean. And we've got 3 slides here with multiple cars. So Jim, if you could start out, I guess the first question I would have is what got you into drag racing? How did you rank Niagara as opposed to maybe some of the other places? I know you won Indy at least once. I'm not sure if you won it more than that, but that's the big time. That's Indy on Labor Day weekend. That's where the greats are made. So if you could just spend a few minutes commenting on your career, we'd appreciate that.
This is a 65-year journey, you know.
We've got time.
Actually, a lot of people agree. This guy over here, he changed a lot of our lives with this Niagara drag strip thing. We started out racing on abandoned drag strips, and I belonged to a custom car club in South Buffalo, and we had a Sunday where we went to this Kohler Air Force Base, which is Dragway Park, Yuga. And all these cars were running around with EG and FG and GGL. So I just started asking a question, what's all this G stuff about? Well, it's a gas class, right? So I, at that point in time, had a 36 Chevy Coupe. And me and my dad put it together, and I had a 57 Chevy 6-cylinder motor in it. And went to Dunkirk a couple of times to watch, and I thought, well, I'm gonna enter this deal and see what goes on, right? So I entered. The car was like an E-gas or F-gas car. So sure, what happens is I won a trophy, right? I won the class, won a trophy. Well, that was the worst thing could ever happen. Because then we just got more interested in it. And this Anglia here was actually the first actual race car I built. A bunch of us motorheads were hanging around your house one night, and it was a weekend of the Indy Nationals, which was a big deal, right? So there was 3 or 4 of us said, let's go to Indy. And one guy had a nice, fairly new Pontiac. So we said, well, you got the best car, we'll take that, we'll go to Indy. We're just going for Saturday and we're going to come back. Well, it was 1964, Jack Christman, the first funny car. I mean, we were blown away, so we couldn't leave. So I spent the night in the trunk of a Pontiac, and we stayed there. And I liked all these Anglia, all these gas cars. I kind of really liked these Anglia cars. Pulled the wheels up, and pretty cool car. So winter of '64, I went home, found that Anglia up in Canada. We drug it 25 hours. I drug it out of Canada. Spent all winter building it. And Dean kind of just got the track going. It was a pretty good racetrack. And he would have these gasser meets, so you could kind of tell. Got a bunch of guys. Ohio was famous for the gasser cars. Joe Horodka, all these guys with great gassers. And he would have a special gasser day, and man, we'd have a couple hundred great gassers. So you could judge what you were doing with the rest of these Ohio guys. So in '64, I got pretty competitive. I could run close to the record and stuff. So '65, and we had towed, we just had an old Chevy. I towed it around with a tow bar. So I tow barred the car to Indy to see if I could run at Indy in '65. Well, we got the thing going pretty good. Had a lot of good help. And we ended up winning the final round. I ran B-gas at Indy, went 11:20, 118. And I beat a guy, I'll never forget it, I beat Bob Riffle, which that was a rod shop car, which at that point in time was a pretty big deal, right? So we won the class, and the next day it was, I'm getting ready to go home. No, you got to stay. You got to race street eliminator. All the winners, the gas classes, they all faced off for what they called little eliminator. So okay, we're going to do that. So I get out there and I run this. I got to race this black Willys coupe from California, some Stonewoods and Cook guy. I don't know who they were. So I'm running down the racetrack. I'm shifting. I get about 2 feet before the finish line. I go, man, I got this deal. This black car comes running by, about blew me off the racetrack. So I really got interested in that. I went back to the pits and I hung out the rest of the day in the Stonewoods and Cook pit area. So I thought, well, this looks cool. I'm going to go home and put a blower on my Anglia and run this supercharged gas deal. Well, NHRA says you can't do it because it's only got a 90-inch wheelbase. To have a blower, you got to have a 92-inch wheelbase. So I sold that car to a guy in Indy, had a Chevrolet dealer, and he wanted that car to display in his dealership. So I had sold him the car back to, actually Grand Island. I found an Austin, which was 92-inch wheelbase. So I'm going to build me a double-A gas car. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I went to junkyard, got old 392, got a set of cylinder heads, and I'll never forget it. I'm building this car, and it's about the middle of the winter, and I'm out in the garage in a potbelly stove, and a bunch of guys helping. In comes Dean Johnson. I'm like, what's going on? He said, well, I'm checking to see how your car's coming, because you got a match race May 10th with Stonewoods and Cook and K.S. Pittman. I said, what are you talking about? So that really kicked us in the butt, and we got the thing done. And sure enough, the Saturday before it snowed, but the Sunday was great. We went and raced, and KS had a little trouble with his car, and I ended up beating him, which that really set the hook. So that really got us going with that car, and from racing at Niagara with KS and Doug Cook, when they would come to the East Coast, they needed more cars. So I would tour around them in the summer with them guys, and KS Pittman, he kind of took me under his wing and taught me how to run these cars. I didn't have a clue, but the first few years they'd fight over who'd get to run me. Right, I'd go in the stadium lanes and there'd be a battle on who got behind me to race me, because I wasn't very good. But through the years, it was 1968, and we had changed there was such a big discussion over the double-A gas cars, because George Montgomery built a Mustang, Joe Haruka built a Camaro. They started letting turbo cars in, and there was just nothing but arguments. So NHRA abolished the A-gas class, double-A gas. So I went to double B gas, and got pretty good at that. And in '68, we won the NHRA Division I points championship. And I was the first one to ever be elected by the Division I to be driver and mechanic of the year. So that was a pretty good cool deal with the Austin. And like I said, we won Indy with the Anglia, won the points championship with the Austin, and then it got where the big old car was kind of obsolete. Everybody started building these Opel GT cars, which is top left, right? And it was early '70s, and them cars were just brand new. So I looked around junk, I couldn't find one wrecked. So one of the guys that was helping me on the car, Mikey, he was a body man. He worked for Jack Stevens Buick, right? So he said to me one day, he says, the boss wants to talk to you about building this Opel deal. So I go in, I talk to Jack Stevens, and I asked him, I can't find a car. He said, well, we can get you all the panels for a car. Quarter panels, roof, trunk, doors. Would that work? I said, well, yeah, that would be great. So I ended up, they got me all the panels to build a car. I said, well, what's this all going to cost? He says, well, all you got to do is on the back of the tail of the car, but wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? that was all deal, right? And that was early '70s. 72, we ran competition eliminator at Indy. We won the double B gas class, and then they ended up winning competition eliminator with that car, which was, that was a $10,000 or $12,000 payday back then. Was really good. And 2 weeks later, they had what they call the National Dragster Open at Columbus, Ohio, and we went and won that deal. So I was rich. We won 2 big events in a row, and then I had people knocking down the door to buy that car, so they talked me into it, selling it, and built some funny cars and did okay with that, but that thing tried to kill me a couple of times, so we got, this was actually a funny car a couple of weeks early. I had built we had toured the country with the gas cars, and it kind of dried up, and everybody wanted to have funny cars. So I got hooked up with Smoker Smith's funny car circuit, and I went to a couple of races, First race I went to actually was in Dragway Park, and the cars were really fast compared to what I had been driving. So I'm whistling down through there in the first run, a nice car, custom auto body painted, a beautiful car. And I got to the finish line and let up on the throttle, and it wouldn't, the windshield had come down and wrapped around the injector and held the throttle wide open. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm going 180. And there's a bunch of cornfields, so that don't look too bad. So I remember I put the thing in, couldn't get it stopped, had to shoot out, burn the brakes out of it. I said, well, you know what I'll do, I'll put it in neutral. So I put it in neutral and threw the rods out. And I still wasn't stopping, so I put it in reverse, and that kicked the bottom out of the tranny. So it was okay, got out of the car, I thought, well, we still got the car, we're good shape. Because we had a lot of races lined up. So I got the cars up on bodies up on poles, and we're going down the return road. And the guy told me he starts going pretty fast, so I'm trying to put the brake on, but I got no brakes. Next thing you know, the body flies over the back of the car, tore the back of the car off and ripped both parachutes off it. So then I jam on the brake and the body comes. Now the poles go up through the front of the body. So I ran it a couple more times. We had a good race in Pittsburgh, and I run the car, and it was like 20 pounds heavy, so I said, oh, I'll take the wheelie bars off, we'll be okay. So I'm going down through, and the car's wheel staying a little bit, it's all right, right? So I get down with the finish line, I'm trying to, things driving left, I'm correct. Man, no, this thing's crazy, it won't correct. So we get back in the pits, and the guy comes down with a picture, he says, he shows me this picture. I see how it carries the wheels by the starting line. He says, no, this was the finish line. So I went home, and I didn't like that deal. And I had a good friend that helped me through a lot of these cars, Big John Torelli. I told him, John, I don't like this funny car thing. I'm going back to competition eliminator. If I can find a Fiat body, we'll cut it all up and put it on this funny car chassis. Because there's a points race at Dragway Park, Cayuga in 2 weeks. So we find a guy, me and John find a guy in Ohio, and he's got a Fiat body. So we buy the body, and I got my pickup truck with a cap on it, and it don't fit in the body. The body won't fit in the truck. So we asked the guy if he's got a saw. So we sawed the thing in 4 pieces and put it in the truck. But we had modified, we lengthened it and chopped it, and we had modified it quite a bit. But long story short, we put that thing together, went up to Dragway Park, Cayuga, Division I points race, and we won that race. And I had missed the first Division I points race, but there was 4 left. So I went to the rest of them, and I won all 4 of them. And the final race was in Adco, New Jersey, right? Darwin Dow, division director. So we finished the day, and we thought we won the points championship. And the points champion, he gets to go to Ontario, California, and $5,000, right? Well, you collect the money at the pay window in Ontario, right? So we're all loaded up, heading out, and here comes Darwin Dow running out the track entry. Whoa. I said, Don, what's the matter? He said, well, we just did all the points, and you and the Terenzio brothers are tied for points. He went to all 5. You went to 4, but he was runner up. He was the car to beat, really. So I said, well, he says, you want to go to, I said, yeah, I want to go to Ontario, California, man. Absolutely. He said, well, they want to go too. How are we going to do it? I said, oh, you want to flip a coin? What do you want to do? Terenzio wants to race you for it. Now it's midnight, right? Everybody's gone, cold, no Christmas tree. How are we going to do this? Darwin says, I'll get out there and flag you. I'll have a guy at the finish line. Whoever wins the race goes to California, right? And the Terenzio car was called the Italian Way. They were out of New York City.
Right.
I was pretty scared of these dudes. Man, when I beat them, I got out of there in a hurry. And I mean, they were really good guys, but they were, you know. So we run the race, nighttime. I don't know who wins. It's so close, right? And at the end of the racetrack, there's a big bang and fire, and everybody come down and says, "Oh, you blew the thing up, right?" I go, "No, not really. I just run great right through the lights." He said, "Well, there was a big bang at the end of the finish line." Meanwhile, the guy comes walking up that was at the end of the finish line. He says, "Man, I can't believe you made it through that." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, there was a guy in the bleachers with a shotgun trying to shoot your front tire out." I said, "I wonder who that was," right? So I'm like, "There's no way, whatever." And we got down, and sure enough, there's a bullet hole right through the headers. They went for the front tire, but they got the headers. But
This guy was related to the guys you were running?
I'm just guessing. But anyway, I think we towed the car right out of the track and didn't to get out of there. When we come back to return, well, we just kept going. Another guy grabbed the trailer. We went out on the road and lowered the car and went home. We didn't want to get no part of that deal. But we went to Ontario. It was a great, it was 74, 75. Garlits set the ET record. It was good for like 8 years. I mean, it was just an incredible race. So.
Did you ever race those guys again?
No, I did not. No, that was kind of the end. I was lucky enough to have twin boys, and they were born, and I kind of took a break racing and opened up a shop and started an engine shop and chassis shop, and I was busy for quite a while with that deal. I didn't race much for about 10 years.
Now, are you racing now?
Yeah, that's actually what the funny car tried to kill me.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
See how close the windshield is to the injector?
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. It's not a good deal.
Wow.
But,
So where do you race now?
well, I took a break for, like I say, probably 8 or 10 years. I built a little Chevette street car, just kind of running around the street, but I ended up getting crazy with that deal. I went to Lancaster one night, put alcohol in it, and put it on its roof. There was no door car that ever had run a 4-second ET, right? So this was a street car, but I had a big black Chevrolet in it, and it was pretty nice on gas, but I want to be the first guy in the 4s with a door car, so I put alcohol in it. First run went 508. Oh, man. I'm going to wait till about 9, 10 o'clock, and the air comes in. We're going to have our first 4. So I went out there and thought, well, I got to get a real good burnout going here, get the tires real. How about half track? It flipped up on its roof. That was the end of my Chevette. And then like I say, we took a break for a while, and then IMRRC came up with this Top Sportsman Quick 8 thing. And it was a deal where you had to have a door car, and they didn't really care what was in it. Just as long as it was a door car, the doors had to open and close, and the driver had to sit on the left. That was the only rules there were. So me and Big John Torelli again, he got me in a lot of this trouble. He said, "You know what? We're gonna kind of build like an alcohol funny car, had a torsion bar front, solid rear." I said, "Well, where are we going to put the driver?" He said, "Well, we'll build a driver's pod like a jet car has." Right? So I said, "Well, okay, John, we'll do this." So we get a little Corvette body, and we stretched it and built this car. And at that point in time, everybody was trying to run a 6-second ET and 200 mile an hour with a door car, right? So we ran this couple races, ran some 7.0s, and I thought, well, they got a nice race coming up at Bristol, Tennessee, and I got some new stuff I want to try, right? So we go to Bristol, Tennessee, and this was a Top Sportsman bracket race, right? You had to dial in what you want. So we had run a couple of times, and I didn't run the full quarter. Fred says, "Man, this thing's really good." Fred Hound's driving for me, really good driver. And he said, "What are you going to dial?" I said, "Well, what do you think?" He said, "This thing's going to go well into the 6s." I said, "Well, how about 675? I think it's going to go better than that. I go, there's no way. No one's ever ran a 6. How can we do this? So sure enough, he gets in it, goes out there, makes a great run. It goes 668 at 208.
Wow.
Right? Well, that made, the owner of IHRA said it was the worst day of his lifetime because everybody just went berserk and everything in the car got, for the next season, which was the beginning of Pro Mod, whatever was in that car was outlawed. No straight front axles, no solid rear, no driver pod on the left. They had to make it more like a pro stock car and stuff. And sure enough, I thought, well, the car is done. Says, no, John, no. John says, no, we'll just put it back up on the jig and we'll put our suspension in the front, suspension in the back. And he was really clever at doing this stuff. I was the welder. He was the fabricator. I was the welder. So whatever he made, I'd be there all night. He'd make something all day, and I'd be there all night welding it. but the following year, we brought that car back with the way they wanted it, and we won like 3 straight events with that car, and they had promised everybody that was gone, but we ended up winning some IHRA championships and NHRA championships, and we ran Pro Mod. We ran Pro Mod for 15 years, and I was inducted in the Northeast Hall of Fame, the East Coast Hall of Fame, and I got a call one day from Don Garlits after I had kind of quit the Pro Mod deal, sold everything off, moved to North Carolina, and he said, we want to induct you into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And I'm thinking it's a joke, right? Yeah, one of my buddies joking around. And I said, no, you don't ever bring somebody from the East. It's always West Coast, Prudhomme and McEwen. It's all West Coast guys. No East Coast guys ever get in Hall of Fame, right? No. And I didn't believe it. And he called me back. He actually the next day he had a secretary call me back. And that was probably the biggest and best thing that you could accomplish.
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
In the drag racing world. And one of the biggest and best things was I had my twin boys for all the years of Pro Mod, right? Which they were such a big part of it. It was when the data loggers started coming along, and I didn't need a data logger. I looked clutch disc, rod bearings. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't need a data logger, but we got in some trouble a couple of times and couldn't figure out what was wrong. Well, when I got the data logger, that's when both my boys were mechanical engineers. Well, they got I think they interpreted most of this information a lot better than other people did. It was, hey, Dad, we need to do this. Hey, Dad, we need to do that. And like, no, rod bearings look good, clutch discs are good. We're good. No, we need to do that. We need to, and when you get inducted in the Garlits deal, you got to find somebody to induct you, right? So this was like, holy moly, what do I do now? I had some incredible people help me. Whenever we got in trouble, for some reason, I just we're in Florida, and I got the wheels, back wheels on fire, front wheels are 2 feet in the air, and over walks Bob Newberg, and like, he used to call me Joe Addi. Go, Joe Addi, you can't win this race in 60 feet. And he'd teach me things, and Ken Vanny and some chassis guys, we got to a point where I would just keep throwing horsepower at it. Pretty soon the car wouldn't go down the racetrack. And these good shot guys would come up and just want to help, and I was so lucky from the beginning with K.S. Pittman. He was the first guy to start to help me, but I was just always lucky to have Big John Torella was a big part early of what we did. And so anyway, we ran a lot of circuits. Pro Mod car, we would run 30 events in the summer. And all of us worked full-time jobs. The boys, Fred worked at a plant, and I had a shop, so I thought, well, Brett Kepner, he was at the United States Super Circuit, IHRA, NHRA, Super Chevy. He was the announcer. I'd like to call him up, and he'd, yeah. So I asked him if he would induct. Oh, yeah, I'd be glad to. You got to go to Florida and get him fixed up. So he called me one day, and he says, how long you run Pro Mod? I said, I don't know. He said, well, you ran 15 years. He said, you got any idea how many championships you won? I said, I don't, because like I said, we were on so many circuits. Well, he informed me that in 15 years we won 12 championships, which I went, there is no way. Well, he's a drag racing historian. Well, he had every one and named every one of them. Right. So it's like, but you're so busy when you're doing it, I don't think any of us had any idea, how much,
Yeah. So he's the guy that inducted you into the...
Yeah, Brett Kepner.
That's great. That's great.
Fabulous announcer. He's still, to this day, a drag race historian. He would go to tracks that were closed, and they'd be trailer parks, but here's where this guy set this record and that record, and he's just perfect authority.
Well, that's quite a story. That's quite a career.
There you go.
And you blame it all on this guy. Huh?
Yeah, well, he
was instrumental.
There's a lot of people owe this guy a lot of thanks for what he did. I mean, he stuck his neck out there and built a drag strip and run a drag strip when I'm sure when he started out he wasn't thinking he was going to end up being rich, but it was something that he wanted to do. And that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing all that. Dean, we're somewhat coming to where we need to wrap this up. And we're going to throw it open for questions, but I was just wondering, have you got anything else you'd want to throw in? Oh, you don't have 37 pages there, do you?
No, I do have a lot of that, but I really wanted probably to say...
I need the microphone.
I'm sorry. I thought we were done. Me personally, I was done with drag racing, and when I had a fellow come up, they wanted to get some of the signage that I had in my hangar, and we found all of this stuff that I had no idea. I was too lazy to throw away. And what happened is people from the 60s and 70s that I knew and for the most part were my friends, I got to see them again. And so from 1960 and 60 and 70 till now, to see people that were such a big part of my life, you just can't believe how fortunate I have been. So I met some awful good people, and most of the people now have forgotten all of the fighting that we did, and we did a lot. We've become friends and breakfasts and suppers and different meetings, and it's been a treat to have been a part of this phenomenon, drag racing. And we got in on the first part of it, so all of the people, or many of the people that started, that were basically nobody, where they were forced to build stuff, and they became very famous for products that were involved in drag racing, and we were all, basically, we were nobody with just an interest in the sport, and we became part of history, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so, very definitely. We'd like to open this up for some questions. We don't have a mic in the audience, so if you have a question, if you could just speak loudly. Anybody have questions or speak up?
A lot of my friends have been asking me, why did the drag strip close and how come?
We closed in 1974 was the last year we ran. We had been restricted. It ends up about 21 days a year. We had 1 or 2 Saturdays we could run. We couldn't start till 1. We had to be done by dusk. We basically got regulated out of business. You can't run a business 21 days a year. And so we just couldn't keep up. We couldn't make ends meet, couldn't pay our bills. And the woman that owned there was 129 acres, 2 sections of property, and she owned the bottom end, 129 acres. And I had just paid her $4,000 or $5,000 Christmas time, but I was still behind. And but we had been going on like that forever. And so she took my money, and the next day she said, my son is going to run the track. And there wasn't anything I could do. She was right. We owed her the money, and I couldn't pay it. And so the next day, I went down with an axe, and I was pretty sure I couldn't run the track, and I cut absolutely every wire that I could find. I cut in the track or chopped with an axe. And we took all the bleacher boards out, and I threw my keys in the tower. They seemed to keep coming back to me. And she went down there and saw what was going on, and she said, well, how am I going to run the track? And I said, well, you've got pavement, and you've got the frame for the drag strip, and you're on your own. Well, she didn't have it, and she put us out of business. But it was our fault. We were late, and she was right. But the town of Niagara had seen to it that we just couldn't. You can't run a business 21 days a year. You just can't. And you're going to lose some of them to rain or bad weather. So we were done.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have questions, but I got some comments. I'm Bruce Mellenbacher, and this is Bill Mellenbacher. We own Dragway Park. When I came here, we drove 4 hours. I'm here with this.
Okay, thanks. You kept? Let me start over again. I'm Bruce Mellenbacher, and this is Bill Mellenbacher, and we ran Dragway Park in the 70s and 80s. To give you a little background on Cayuga, our grandfather, L.B. Mellenbacher, bought the training base in Kohler, Ontario in 1948 and 1954 is when they started drag racing with the Piston Pushers Car Club out of Brantford. I've talked to Jim once in a while, and I was going to ask him how we got started, but he told me the story a year or two ago when we were at Empire. So we ran, Jim is 100% correct. I mean, the cars ran at Lancaster, then they ran at Empire, then they come to Cayuga, and then they went to Niagara, Sunday Niagara. And I mean, Jim did it, and Zakia did it, F.J. Smith did it, and there's a long line of Stormalong guys. I mean, and on and on and on. So the reason I came up here is I wanted to thank Dean for what he's done. Because, folks, there's going to be a time come, and it's not that far away, where there's going to be no Dean Johnsons and no Jim Oddys and no Bruce Mellenbachers and all of you in this room. And somehow you got to pass the knowledge along, because it's history of our sport, and it's very, very important that we do things like this. And you know, people talk about Facebook and how goofy Facebook is, but you know what? I wouldn't keep in touch with Dean and Jim's wife and so many more of you that are in here if it wasn't for Facebook. It seemed to got us all back together again and talking about history. And so that's all I got. I just wanted to thank you guys for having this. It was a pleasure coming, and hopefully we can do it again someday.
I'd like to comment a little bit on that.
We signed a lot of checks for Addi, too.
I'm so glad to see you guys here, man. It's great seeing you again. But I mean, I had such a great time at Dragway Park, Cayuga, and your mom and dad, I will never, to my death day, forget Bruce and Joan Mellenbacher. They were the happiest, luckiest, they were great people to be with. I remember one time, he must have had 8, 10 Fuel Funny cars, dragsters, and it's pouring rain out. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to get he's going to out of business paying all these guys rain money. Right? And there's Bruce, he's talking, everybody laughing and joking. I'm like, man, how are you going to get out of this one? He goes, I'm okay, we got rain insurance. I'll never forget that, but he had some of the big events, and I've told this to Bruce before. They had, Thrush Mufflers was big in the day, and they had a Can-Am National at Dragway Park, Hugo, and it was a big, big deal. I mean, it was, again, probably 15, 20,000 people there, and I had my Austin, and it was an NHRA deal, and I had reset the double big S super record, and I won the deal, and I still have that trophy on my mantle to this day, and that was 68, 69, something like that. But and when Bruce and Joan were gone, that place was never the same. I mean, it's okay, it's a good racetrack, but what they brought, and you could just see both of them, they put their heart and soul into, and I don't know why they ever did this, but they really, really enjoyed themselves immensely at the track that they just loved to do it. They talked to every racer, every race car, win, lose, or draw. I mean, they were just roaming the pits, and that's just stuff I'll never ever forget. It was great, and I'll never thank them enough. Thanks you for coming. Appreciate it, Bruce and Bill.
Thanks very much for coming. I think before we formally wrap this up, so Jim, hold our slide, the last two slides. Let me have Jim from Skyline come up for just a couple seconds. If you saw the cars out front, Skyline Drags down to Tioga Center is about ready to open their season, and we thought we'd invite them over, and let's keep this drag racing deal going. So if you can take a couple minutes to just tell people what you're doing.
You want me up there? Or?
Just, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my name is James Robinson, also known as Robbo in the drag racing world. I spent most of my career at Empire, did a lot of work with the IHRA, traveling with them up and down the East Coast, and recently with Lancaster. And, I got about 5 minutes to stuff all this in. So I always wanted my own place or my own track since mid-20s, 30s. Thought about it, and life got ahead of me. And so recently I was able to take my retirement money out, and an opportunity came up with Skyline. But I did want to mention, by the way, the honor it is to stand up here with these two gentlemen. Just years and years, and they're awesome guys. I interviewed Dean at Lancaster 2 years ago. It was a great interview. I was at the Empire Nationals and watched Freddie win. What was that, like at midnight, that marathon of a race? It was crazy. The last time I walked down, I was at Niagara, it was about 2003, and it was a nice warm, Sunday afternoon in July, and I walked all the way down the shutdown area, walked up the return road. Mother Nature was slowly taking over. And I got back up to the starting line, and I was met by an MP from the local military base and a Niagara County Sheriff, and they were asking me what I was doing there, what was going on, and I explained what I announced at Empire at the time, and just wanted to, I was feeling nostalgic, and they said, okay, very good, get in your car, get out here, and never return. So that's my Niagara story. So anyways, I'm here to talk about Skyline, and when my friends from Empire and Lancaster found out that I was going to talk, they said, say something nice about our track. So there's 5 operating drag strips in western New York, and they're nice. You have, that was supposed to be a joke, ha ha ha. The Lancaster by Buffalo, races on Friday night. I was actually working there last night. It was a good night. Empire down in Leicester. Still operates as a quarter mile on Friday nights. If you want to go quarter mile passes, go out there on Friday night. A little no drag strip in South Butler called South Butler Nostalgia Dragway, and it's truly nostalgic. They run older cars. There's a grass median in between the 2 lanes. It's in the middle of a cornfield. Empire State Timers Association, or lovingly known as ESTA in Cicero, New York. And then the one that makes my eyes sparkle is Skyline. It was called Skyview years ago. It's part of Skyline Motorsports Park, where Shangri-La 2 is. And last year, it went up for sale. And I'm thinking to myself, well, work for New York State. There's no way I can afford the $3.5 million price tag unless, somebody wants to help us out. But there's two gentlemen back there, Dave Jeanette and George Coleman, who stepped up, talked to the guy who actually owns the track, and we met in December, and he agreed to lease. And so I took some retirement savings, and I'm an expert now. If you ever want to make your retirement savings go poof, just come see me. We signed a lease, a multiple-year lease, signed on with the World Drag Racing Alliance, one of the newer sanctioning bodies, and spent the winter just getting together, talking, doing stuff, and our opening day was April 12th, and it poured. But the good thing about April 12th is Dave and George worked with Daddy Dave from Street Outlaws on a no-prep race, and no-prep racing we could talk about. There's two no-prep cars outside, a little bit more. It's a different type of racing that I'm not used to, and during the whole, what we did have a race a few weeks later, I think I had 10 heart attacks within 20 passes because I'm a bracket guy and everything I like is usually straight and true. But we do have once a month, it's called the Upstate Outlaw No Prep Series, and it's put on with Daddy Dave and the group. Every Friday night we do testing and tuning. You can come out and just run down the track and have a good time. Saturdays we're doing a no prep. We're going to have a junior dragster shootout. It's basically reserved for shows and stuff. And then Sundays are bracket racing and points. What we also started on Wednesday nights, one Wednesday night a month, we might go to two, where you pay $5 at the gate and $5 per pass. Anybody can come out. Anybody in this room could go drag racing right now if you didn't know. One of the nice things about drag racing is the car you drive to work, school, wherever, you could take to the drag strip and race it. You don't have to go and make something purpose-built to see if you like it, which is really nice. By the way, I do want to mention Bruce. He puts on races over at Empire. I was there last year, and he is the most detailed-oriented guy I've ever worked with, and he puts on a great show. So make sure when you I forget, Bruce. What's the name of it?
The date?
The name of your Quick 32 Sportsman Series, and what date? Do you know?
One in June, one in July, one in August, one in September.
One June, July, August, and September at Empire, and it's a great race, and it's well ran. So, but come see us at Skyline. I don't know if everybody realized that from Watkins Glen, it's less than 50 minutes. It's off of Route 17C in between Tioga Center and Owego. Right up there's a sign out the road, and it's really nice because it's called Skyline Drive. It's you see a sign for Skyline Drive, go up the road, and that's where we're at. We also have a half-mile concrete oval there. We've leased out to a guy who has track down in Pennsylvania called Evergreen, and next weekend is their first race. So the place is up and running. It laid dormant for, I think, 8 years, and now it's back up and running, and the whole crew that we have is 100% behind the track. We want to make it work. We want to bring back the name, bring back the excitement, kind of push Skyview off to the side, but Skyline. So please come and join us. And the other tracks that I mentioned, go to them too, because the drag racing community is pretty tight. Tell me I'm wrong, we're all pretty tight. You could go to a national event and walk right up to the driver and talk to the driver who just went 300 miles per hour, or you could, go into local pits. We're all, in this together kind of thing. It's an awesome sport. I've been loving it since 1987, and I think I've probably went over my 5-minute allotment, haven't I, Kip? So, but yes, please come see us. Go check out the cars. Our photographer Ron Evans from Thrill Shots is with us too. If you want to take pictures with the cars, there's QR codes on the windshields that will take you right to our Facebook page. Like I said, thank you, Kip, for asking me to join. This is awesome.
Great.
Here's
Thanks,
your
Jim. Thank you. Well, we got two more slides, and then our program will be officially done. I would like to invite everybody back to the center. These guys, Jim will be here. Stop and look at the cars if you didn't on your way back. Please come back and talk to these gentlemen. Again, thank you both for taking the time. Thank all of you for coming down to see this. Let's wrap it up and go back to the center. Just because we could. Thanks, everybody.